I don't know that there's any one formula to this. I met with Dick Vermeil recently for a piece I'm writing for the Inquirer, and nobody had longer, more grueling, more brutal training camp practices than Dick Vermeil did. But that was back in the 1970s and into the 1980s, when training camp was actually for NFL players to get in shape. I mean, Barrett can speak to this, even when he played in the 90s, guys stay in better physical condition now. They don't have to work season jobs to make extra money or anything else. They are fully engaged and devoted to being professional athletes now. So
we're back on Sports Take on this Friday. Hope you're doing well out there. Hope you have a great weekend in store. I am Rob Ellis along with Barrett Brooks, Derek Gunn, joining us now as if columnist from the Inquirer, author of The Rise, all around phenomenal human being, humorist on social media was not enough. We're adding yet another title to Mike Sielski's resume here, and that would be host at 94 WIP. He's going to join Jody Mack. All right, it's actually join Glenn. Glenn will be partnering with Jody Mack and Mike. Mike, you get the Saturday shift, I believe, if I'm not correct. If I'm not right, wrong, whatever I'm trying to say, with Glenn. Obviously, I'm not hosting every Saturday from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. But Mike, congratulations, man! Very happy for you.
Thank you very much, Rob. I appreciate that. Yeah, as I've tried to tell people ever since this possibility came up, I'm very aware that, and have no illusions about the idea that my size 9 feet are going to fit into Ray Dittinger's Joel Embiid sized shoes.
Right.
But I'm going to just try my best to meet the standard of excellence that he set.
So first thing you need is one of these. Just get one of these and you'll be fine, Mike. Okay.
Let me show you something.
All right, go ahead.
This is one of the half dozen that are on my office area behind me. So I'm good to go.
You're already good to go. Yeah,
yes.
You're fine. You won't have any problems, but congratulations. Derek, you're muted, man. Go ahead. Come on, Derek. I know this is the first time you've done this. Let's go.
I said, I think they picked the perfect compliment for Glenn.
Thanks.
I agree.
Thanks, Gunner. I appreciate that.
I agree, 100%.
Yeah. It's going to be fun. The thing is, I think that show with Glenn and Ray was really unique in the market. This is probably being too simplistic about it, but it was almost kind of like NPR sports talk, if that makes sense. Like, no manufactured outrage, just, here are two guys who are really smart, who know sports, who are willing to talk about it and talk about some other things that interested people. Like I said, I'm just hoping that I can, come in and keep people interested and hopefully inform them and entertain them to anything close at the degree that Ray did.
It's catching. My inability to speak.
You
better put a mask on, Mike, because you're going to catch you. Mike, let me ask you this, man. A question for you, because there is a fine line between being a provocateur, someone who makes people think and react, versus the manufactured faux outrage, hot take world, unfortunately, sadly, that we live in, which gets rewarded, sadly, in the business that we work in. How do you walk that fine line?
I think, Rob, you have to constantly remind yourself what you believe in and remind yourself of what your job is supposed to be. I've always looked at my job as a columnist as to make people think, okay? Not necessarily, not at all, to take a position that I don't believe in, but to reach them at a place where even if they disagree with me, they're at least going to listen to the argument that I'm making, right? I feel like, and I think you're putting your finger on this, too many people in sports media nowadays don't try to persuade people. And this is true of media everywhere, right? It's all about kind of screaming and yelling and preaching to people who already agree with you.
Yep.
And I try very hard to say, okay, look, I'm just one person. Not everybody's going to look at the world the same way I do, but I'm pretty secure in how I view these things. I'm going to be open-minded to the possibility that I might be wrong. And so let me approach everything from that standpoint. And that doesn't prevent you from taking strong positions on certain issues, but I think it does help in terms of being able to meet people where they are and understand that, okay, even though you're in a position where you're supposed to give your opinion might be wrong. So just deal with people and issues in good faith, and hopefully you'll be able to reach more people that way.
Well said.
Mike, that's pretty good, man. You know, because
Well
I
stated.
don't do what I do like that. I think I'm more so an analyst. So I feel as though I'm breaking down things, and I'm giving you what my perception of what I saw was. So that's an interesting way to look at things, because I mean I never thought of it in that capacity. I appreciate you giving that to me.
No, I appreciate that, Barrett. And look, everybody's got their own jobs to do, right? Like that's the whole nature of media nowadays, is everybody works at different places. Those places have certain connections and missions that may be different from, a place like the Philadelphia Inquirer or, a media member like me. I really value my independence. I like being able to say what I want to say in the way I want to say it. And so I'm very grateful that A, the Inquirer has always let me do that, and B, now WIP is going to let me do that too. I'm not beholden to anybody. That doesn't mean that I'm going to rip for the sake of ripping or praise for the sake of praising. It just means that I can deliver those opinions and messages on my own terms, and I really value that.
Mike, do you worry about how will you engage with the callers? Because as you know, when it comes to radio in any format, you always have an abundance of callers who want to debate you, who think they know more than you. When you have inside information, they're going to debate you. Do you worry about having to rein in the variations of emotions?
Well, I'll say this, Gunner. Number one, it's Glenn's show first and foremost. He's the one with the 30 years in radio. So at least initially, I'm just going to try to not get in his way. I'm going to do my best to lend analysis and be a partner to him. Right. And one of the things he told me right away was, remember, it's our show. So it's not the caller's show. And their show takes, many fewer callers than most other talk radio programs, at least in Philadelphia, do. So, we can kind of engage with them on our terms. I will say this. I am very prepared to hear from people, whether it's on the radio or on social media, telling me, you're no Ray Didinger, to which my response is, yeah, no kidding. And I'm not going to try to be that. It would be silly of me to try to emulate Ray and try to be him in any regards. I can only be me and carry myself and respond in the way that I know how to.
Yeah, I mean, Mike, I got to tell you, I've been in thankfully not at JAKIB Media for sure, and not, at WIP. But I've been in meetings with bosses at other places that I've worked where they would say to me, okay, he's going to take one side. How about you take the other side, even if you don't believe it? And I have never, ever, ever been able to do that in my life. And I'm not trying to do this to pat myself on the back, but I'm just telling you this goes on. And how about you, say something, just kind of stir it up. I'm like, I'll say something to stir it up if I believe it. If I don't believe it, I'm not going to. And it's sad in that a lot of people are willing to sell their soul, and a lot of people who have sold said soul get rewarded for it in our business. It is a shame. You're not one of them. I'm just telling you, this stuff goes on, unfortunately.
Oh, Rob, it absolutely does. And I think, we're talking about something, quite honestly, that is bigger than just us talking about sports.
Yep.
I mean, this absolutely gets to the heart of the credibility of the media, so to speak, in our country. And the idea that you are supposed to say things or write things in a certain way or publish things in a certain way to promote a narrative or to take the opposing side. And all that does is undermine people's trust and faith in what we're supposed to be doing. If all we're doing is arguing for the sake of arguing, or taking a side, or promoting a narrative that doesn't necessarily have anything to do with what's actually happening in the facts, then, all these complaints about, people don't trust the media. Yeah, people don't trust the media, and often it's our own doing in the reason why they don't trust us.
Amen.
Exactly.
Amen. All right, Mike, let's turn our sights to the Eagles here. There is whether it's real or not, a lot of outrage about the short length of the practices. We had 58 minutes on Wednesday. We had an hour and 15 today. So they went a little bit longer. The Eagles say, look, we're jamming a lot into that time. There's no wasted, there's no fat on the fillet. Okay. And we're looking at this for the long haul. Our people are telling us this is the way to go. The third day you rest, so to speak. And, you know, ultimately it paid off for them last year with a lack of injuries. Where do you stand on it?
I don't know that there's any one formula to this. You know, I met with Dick Vermeil recently for a piece I'm writing for the Inquirer, and nobody had longer, more grueling, more brutal training camp practices than Dick Vermeil did. But that was back in the 1970s and into the 1980s, when training camp was actually for NFL players to get in shape. I mean, Barrett can speak to this, you know, even when he played in the 90s, you know, guys stay in better physical condition now. They don't have to work season jobs to make extra money or anything else. They are fully engaged and devoted to being professional athletes now. So how much more do you want them to do once training camp begins? Look, are there certain situations where I think a particularly brutal or grueling or more hardcore training camp would help teams? Yeah, there probably are situations like that. Are the Eagles one of them? I don't know. I think it depends on the makeup of a particular team. Are the guy, you know, you see story after story, year after year of guys getting together in an off season. You know, we're going to Texas and Jalen Hurts is having all the wide receivers out here. And, you know, you see what guys do to stay in shape. Do they really need to be killing each other in training camp? I'm not sure anymore.
Well, let me ask you this. You know, looking at how this team is constructed, where do you put it as far as if you rank 2017, 2004, and, you know, this year's team?
I'll tell you, it's not quite at the level of those camps, Barrett. I mean, we were all there for those camps. I mean, first of all, 2004 was like a carnival because of Terrell Owens.
Yep.
I mean, we all remember that one Friday morning when 25,000 people showed up at Lehigh to watch practice because T.O. was there and Javon Curse had come in and expectations were so high. That training camp was unique in every regard. 2017 was interesting because you really did get the sense day after day that, like, okay, this team really might be good. Carson Wentz looks like he's taken some steps forward, and Alshon Jeffrey, you know, is a better receiver than anybody else they've had. And they had those joint practices with the Dolphins, and you saw them go toe-to-toe in those practices and go, okay, they're deep and they're really good. And I think this camp is similar, but not quite at those levels. There does seem to be a feeling amongst the players. You know, Brandon Graham said it on Wednesday. You know, we're good, and we know we're good. Do I think that necessarily that means they're going to win the Super Bowl or, you know, win the NFC? No, but I don't think it would be completely out of the blue if that happened. And I think you're getting a sense of that in camp so far.
Is it the quarterback? Because you mentioned.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, of course. I mean, Barrett, it's like nobody's breaking any news here by saying the Eagles season comes down to Jalen Hurts. Like, we all acknowledge it. We all agree. We all say it. You know, let week one against Detroit get here and let's see how he does, because it's just the obvious answer. Like, it's going to come down to him.
Mike, do you find that?
Mike,
do you find that it's a little bit more difficult to get closer to the younger players of today? You know, we all have been in the business long enough to know that, you know, players are smart enough to figure out, especially when they came from small town environments to a big city. It would take them a while to get comfortable, but they were smart enough to figure out who they could trust, who they, you know, could say things to off the record. But today's player, man, it's a different breed of athlete.
I agree with you completely, Gunnar. You know, a big reason for that is the way that access has been reduced and lessened by these teams. They don't want independent media, generally speaking, talking to players if they're not supervised, if they can help it. You know, but that's the environment we're working under nowadays. And when you have people like you know, like my colleague Jeff McClain at the Inquirer, who are able to develop sources to get people to tell them things, you know, give them an idea of what's really going on with a particular team. It's a much rarer thing. It's puts on display your skills as a reporter. And you end up, you know, it's interesting, right? Like, I can remember years where I would try to get to know the younger guys on the team in the hopes that, okay, if this guy's going to be around a while, then he'll remember me and know who I am. And maybe I'll develop a rapport with him to be able to talk with him about stuff, and he'll feel comfortable enough in me to share some things. You don't really get much of that opportunity anymore. And now it's the guys like Jason Kelsey and Brandon Graham, who have been around a long time, who recognize familiar faces, who have been around as long as they have, who are more apt to say the things that everybody's thinking, and, you know, maybe pull you aside or use your name, or just recognize that they recognize you.
Related maybe to an extent here, Mike, but I wanted to ask you about this, but maybe it ties into what we're talking about right now. So the whole Kyler Murray thing, which was an absolute clown show on 100 different levels. So initially it gets leaked with this new contract that there's 4 hours of independent study, whatever you want to call it, a clause in his contract per week. He reacts yesterday. It wasn't even a scheduled press conference. He just, you know, went off. Later that night, they remove it. This looks so bad on 100 different levels. Number one, that you had to put that in there for Kyler Murray worries me about Kyler Murray. Number two, that you leaked it to somebody as an organization tells me you're a bit of a clown show as an organization. And that was reinforced by the fact that you then took it off the table. So, yeah, you got plenty of time to drink because there's a lot of layers to this one.
They took it off the table.
They took it's out now. They took it out of his contract.
Yeah.
Like this thing to me, Mike, looks awful a million ways, man. But it goes to kind of what you're talking about.
Yeah, go ahead, Gunnar. It looked like you wanted to jump in.
I just wanted to add, you know, and we discussed this yesterday. I don't think the team, somebody from the team leaked this. I firmly believe every time a contract is done, it has to go to the league office. I think it's somebody in the league office who leaked this to one of their media snitches, like an Adam Schefter or Tom Pelissero or somebody like that, more so than the organization itself. The organizations, for the most part, and I would say this is across the board in all 4 major sports, are very closed mouth about revealing anything that's structured within a contract. I think when we find out the numbers of what the contract is worth, you know, it comes from the league office or from the Players Association that have their so-called favorites that they give this information to. So I don't believe the team would leak this. I firmly believe somebody in that league office told one of these media types, and that's how it spread like wildfire.
Could be.
Yeah, well, whoever leaked it, it doesn't reflect well on either party.
No, it doesn't.
At all. And
the team or the player. Yeah,
you know, exactly. And I was kind of monitoring social media and Twitter in particular about this last night, and I saw some people who are really smart, you know, plugged into the league, saying how bad this makes the Cardinals look, and of course it does. But guys, Kyler Murray signed this contract.
Yep.
Yeah.
You know, and I sent this out last night in a tweet. You know, it's as if the Cardinals said to him, you should be ashamed of yourself for not studying more. And by signing the contract, Murray said, you're right, I should be ashamed of myself. Yeah. Like, you signed the deal. You acknowledged that this was something that you needed to do.
Yeah.
So,
then, Mike, he goes on a rant last night, basically, you know, saying how almost ripping the media about it. Like, dude, you signed it, number one. And number two, he's in a shirt that says easy money. He's in a shirt that says easy money with the dollar signs.
Yeah. Well, he said it himself.
$Y.
He said it himself. He said that, you know, he's the type of player that does better when he's out there on the field and he's playing, he's being reactive instead of being, you know, focused in on that. You know, he plays better when he just reacts to it. But also, they have stats, they have numbers that whenever the new Call of Duty comes out, his play reflects Call of Duty.
God.
His numbers get considerably worse when Call of Duty comes out.
All right. So 2 things to that, Barrett. Number one, shout out to my buddy and dear friend Ben Spiegel of the New York Times. He was the one who wrote that initial story in which Murray talked about how much he loves video games, and that quote that you mentioned, Barrett. Ben's a Philly guy, so shout out to him. And then number 2, I think about this in terms of framing Murray against Jalen Hurts, right? And I wrote about this in a column the other day. Like, they're almost like the inverses. It's like, you know, Kyler Murray and Bizarro Kyler Murray, right? Murray is so physically gifted with the way that he can run and throw and all the things that he can do that the Cardinals are willing to give him close to $250 million, even though they think he likes video games too much. Then you have Hurts, who nobody has any reservations at all about his work ethic, about the kind of person he is, about the kind of teammate he is. he's a leader in the locker room. All of those intangible things, all of those boxes are checked. And yet all anybody wants to see is can he stand in the pocket and throw the ball over the middle of the field?
Yep.
And there were occasions Wednesday where I was thinking of Gunnar, to be quite honest, where there were passes Hurts threw that were a little bit late in 7-on-7s and got intercepted. And all I could think of was, people want to doubt Derek Gunn's credibility when it comes to Jalen Hurts struggling in practice. But here's Jalen Hurts struggling a little bit to make these throws in practice. So it's just an interesting dynamic to me in terms of what people around the league and people who follow the league value most in a quarterback.
Yeah. And
unbelievable.
I started the show today because there were several reports that Jalen struggled today throwing the ball, right? At practice. Somehow, when that's put out by certain people, nobody loses their mind. Gunnar relays one OTA and people are insane. It's so weird what triggers people now. It's just, you have a hard time getting a gauge on it. And like Mike, I frankly do. I don't know what the hell is happening half the time.
I have no idea, Rob. I mean, look what happened this week with our friend Jim Salisbury at NBC Sports Philadelphia.
Yeah.
Like that kind of interaction, the one that he had with Nick Castellanos, that happens or used to happen all the time in locker rooms. Okay. And now that it gets thrown up on TV or, not to make this about me. Yeah. But not to make this about me, but Jake Voracek called me a bleeping weasel, and it's on TV in the Philadelphia area, and it becomes this huge thing. These kind of things used to happen in locker rooms and in post-game press conferences all the time. And because of social media, because it's conflict and it's giving fans what they think is an insight into what the athletes think of the people who are covering them. These things then blow up. It's like, oh, are you on Team Castellanos or you're on Team Salisbury? Oh, Sielski must be a weasel because Jake Voracek said it. And it's like, if any of the public knew that these kind of interactions are commonplace or used to be commonplace between athletes and media members, they wouldn't react the way that they seem to now.
Interesting.
I find it interesting how let me correct that. I find it hilarious how people think they know more than you do when you're there every day, or you talk to people every day, or even when you're not there every day, you have people you can talk to that you trust. But they in the comments, well, unless you reveal your source, then it's not valid. Well, if you reveal your source, you don't have a source anymore or sources anymore. So that's why I don't even debate. I just sit back and I laugh at all of it, man, because you go, but if people get you to respond to them, it's like, I got them to respond. So they keep going.
Right. Yes.
So basically you're just throwing more kerosene on the fire.
It's like emotional blackmail sometimes, Gunnar. Like you don't have to, all they want you to do is respond, and you don't necessarily have to do that. And look, I'm of the belief that somebody in my position, if I'm going to dish it out, I've got to be able to take it.
Absolutely.
And there's got to be a little bit of a give and take, but I don't have to respond to every single thing. To kind of bring this full circle, it comes back to what we were talking about at the outset of our conversation, where there are so many media outlets out there now, each with their own agenda and mission and audience that they're trying to hold on to, that you don't know what standard you're being held to, right? Like, there's a difference between what I'm doing and what an Eagles or Flyers or Sixers fan website might want to do. Now, it doesn't mean that there isn't valuable content that those sorts of sites aren't producing. They are often producing very valuable content, but they are, for example, also more apt to look at a guy like James Harden as being completely unselfish and generous for saving the Sixers $15 million under their salary cap this coming season, when I'm more apt to look at it and say, yeah, but he ended up with more guaranteed money in the deal that he just signed than he would have last season. So, let's cool our jets with the generosity and the heaping praise on him because he's so unselfish. It's about dollars and cents, and there's more going on here than just James Harden doing a solid for the Sixers.
And Mike, where do you speaking? I'm going to stay on the Sixers for a minute. There is a lot of debate that and people saying they don't believe that they're actually going to end up with an arena at 10th and Market. There's a lot of back and forth, some ploys being. Do you think and I know we're talking 9 years, so it's man, it's forever from now. But do you think there will be one there? Or do you think it'll be at another location?
If I were a betting man now, Rob, I would say no. I would say another location.
Okay.
I really would. I've heard the theory floated. You kind of made a veiled reference to it. The idea that if this doesn't work out at 10th and Market, then they'll just build an arena in Jersey. Because the headquarters are already in Camden. New Jersey has shown a willingness to give them the tax breaks that they want for the practice facility, and then maybe for a full-fledged arena. That's kind of how I come down on this. I'm skeptical. I'm skeptical anyway that a downtown arena at 10th and Market would necessarily be the best thing for the city. I'm a believer that sports complex down in South Philadelphia is terrific the way it is.
Yes, it is.
And I think the suburban dollars, to be quite honest, is a thing that very few people, when we talk about this, very few people talk about this. The suburban dollars are more easily gettable if you have an arena that is accessible to I-95 and the Schuylkill Expressway. Gunnar lives in Delaware. He can get there. I live in Bucks County. I can get there. Rob lives in Delaware County. He can get there. Barrett, I have no idea where you live, but I'm sure you can get there.
Right across
there you go, Jersey. We got it all covered. All four points can get to South Philly very easily.
Yes.
It's not true of 10th and Market. And,
no.
Never mind all the public transportation issues and all that kind of stuff.
Yep.
And the infrastructure. What about the roads infrastructure, man? There's too many narrow roads in that area, man. I mean, it's not conducive to the influx of people you have getting in and out of there. And think about when you have not just NBA games, if they're smart, concerts, other big events down there. How much land are they willing to take? The access to parking, it doesn't make sense.
Well, you've put your finger on something really important, Gunnar, which is that you've heard this analogy made with comparing the new arena to the possibility, it'll be Philadelphia's answer to Madison Square Garden or the Barclays Center in Brooklyn. The problem is with that analogy is that taking public transportation, and as somebody who worked in New York for 3 years and lived in North Jersey for 2, I know this, taking public transportation is woven into the culture of the New York, Northern New Jersey region. People do it all the time. It is it is very, very convenient. Its tentacles go everywhere. Philadelphia is not like that. And the changes that would have to be made to SEPTA and to the regional rail and all that sort of stuff, and the money that would have to be poured in, that strikes me as a huge stumbling block.
Well,
not only that, but why would you go ahead, Barrett? I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say, I mean, we just talked about it. All 4 sports being in one area. That's kind of the game plan, what you see other cities starting to do now. Everybody's right there in the exact same place. They can use each other's parking. They're right there. To me, that's just that's the best scenario for all 4 teams.
I'm with you, Barrett. Go ahead, Gunnar. I'm sorry.
But and what makes it so perfect the way it is now? Look at the width of the streets. Look at Patterson Street, 11th Street. Look at the accessibility, as you alluded to earlier, Mike, right there off a major interstate. It's the perfect case scenario. And then why would you spend X amount of millions of dollars just a few years ago to renovate one arena if you're now going to funnel billions of dollars into something else? And I know there's a 10-year difference, but why would you even put that kind of money into the present and the past if this is your mindset for the future?
Yeah, I mean, and think about other cities with downtown arenas. Like I think about Pittsburgh, for instance. Their arenas, what was called Heinz Field and PNC Park, they are easily accessible from the highways, close to Pittsburgh. You get in, you can get in and get out. And if you want to go downtown, that's great. But you are very easily able to get on 579 and, start heading east again if you want to. And a downtown location in Philadelphia just would not have that.
Yep.
Well said. Well said. Mike, listen, all the best with the new gig. We're looking forward to it. You and Glenn Mack now. Yes, there you go. Golf clap for Gunnar. In addition to your work at the Inquirer, of course, The Rise, your great book on Kobe Bryant, man. We wish you all the best with everything. We love having you on the show, and have a great weekend. Thanks for your time today, man.
Guys, I appreciate you all so much. Thank you. Anytime you need me, I'm here.
You got it. Take care, Mike. All right,
it,
thanks a lot.
Yep.
Yeah, that's good. I had